Good evening, everybody. Welcome back here to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. My name is Hunter, and in this forecast, we're going to be talking about the early February forecast for the most part, but we're also going to be tracking about a couple of big winter storms and an atmospheric river event that could bring a lot of moisture, including some heavy snow, to the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest. So if you are new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel, follow along with all my detailed, accurate weather breakdowns on this channel, as we do 2 videos a day, late morning, early afternoon, and then again in the evening hours. And also like the video, give it a thumbs up, and share this video with friends, family, and on social media. I definitely appreciate it. Let's look here currently at our temperatures that we're looking at for Saturday morning as you wake up across the west. Pretty chilly, especially in the higher elevations. We're going to be in the teens and 20s, in the lower elevations 30s, 40s, even some 50s down here into Southern California and Southern Arizona. As we warm up tomorrow afternoon out west, we're going to see those temperatures in the 60s and 70s return to parts of Southern California, much of Arizona, parts of New Mexico there, in eastern Colorado, where the coldest of air will be bottled up to the north here in the Pacific Northwest. How about the central U.S.? Saturday morning, waking up here to the single digits and teens across parts of North Dakota, northern Minnesota, Wisconsin there, into the parts of Michigan. We have 20s, 30s, and 40s further to the south. And as we go into tomorrow afternoon, we're going to warm up quite fast across the southern plains into the 70s in parts of Texas there, into western Oklahoma, into western Kansas, 60s possible from South Dakota into Nebraska. A little bit cooler further east you go toward Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky. Temperatures there in the 30s, but hey, we'll definitely take it for this time of year. Saturday morning in the east, the coldest air again will be into northern Maine, where we could wake up in the single digits below zero. Our wind chill values there could be around 15 to 20 degrees below zero. So into northern Maine, parts of Vermont, upstate New York, and especially there into Quebec as well. So make sure you bundle up if you head outdoors there tomorrow morning. But in the afternoon, we're going to warm our temperatures up here across the east, 60s returning across portions of the Gulf Coast and into Florida, 70s, some 80s down there in South Florida near Miami. Here are your highs, though. We're in the single digits to teens from New York State over there into Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Maine. And those wind chill values will be bitterly cold, 10 to 20 degrees below zero from New York eastward there to Maine as we go into Saturday afternoon. Let's look at our temperatures heading into Sunday, the bookend of the weekend, and you can see another warm blob of temperatures from Texas all the way to Michigan. We could be seeing near record high temperatures, places like Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, all the way down to Oklahoma City and even Dallas there as we go through Sunday. Definitely a possibility. Let's talk about the moisture that we have. We have a couple big storms we're tracking, one bigger than the other. The one that is exiting that brought some severe weather, also bringing some snow across New England and the Northeast. That is exiting here this evening, and as we go into sunrise on Saturday, most of the moisture from that will be off of the East Coast. Now, our next big storm we're tracking, we turn our attention back to the west, and we're looking at some heavier snows across the Pacific Northwest, heavy rain, really heavy rain there in northern California there on Saturday. And that'll continue into Saturday afternoon. Look at just the fire hose of moisture across northern California. That'll continue into Saturday night. We are watching a clipper system that could bring some snow to the Badger State of Wisconsin and also into Michigan here. Great Lake region of Lake Superior and Lake Michigan. We could be seeing some heavy snow over the lakes there as we go into Saturday night, and that'll translate eastward through the Great Lakes region on Sunday. Otherwise, that fire hose of moisture with rain and or snow showers will continue across the West Coast going into Sunday. Let's look here at the West Coast, but this is not just going to be a Saturday, Sunday ordeal. This will continue through next week as well. So here's Monday, February 3rd, as we go into Tuesday, February 4th, Wednesday, February 5th, and then we have another storm coming in with heavy moisture Thursday and Friday, February 6th and 7th. We finally will be able to shut off the taps a little bit by the time we get to the following Saturday, on Saturday, February 8th, across California and much of the West outside of areas here of Washington State. So looking at the moisture between now and next Saturday, February 8th, could be seeing double-digit rainfall totals here in Northern California. Some of those rainfall totals could be approaching 2 feet in some areas. Definitely a possibility with a lot of widespread 8 to 12 inches here as well across Northern California. That certainly could cause some flash flooding in those areas. And then we look at the higher elevations. Yes, the ski resort resorts, the watershed out west, like the Sierras. We could be seeing up to 70 inches, maybe 80 inches of snow here going between now and next Saturday, February 8th as well, and that'll transfer up into Oregon, Washington State, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, Colorado, you name it. A lot of the areas here in the higher elevations out west will be seeing some heavy snowfall. How about the central and eastern U.S. next week? Well, as we go into next week's time frame, notice the 1st and 2nd, we're seeing a little bit of those snow showers there across the Great Lakes like we mentioned. Here we go into Monday, next work week on Monday, February 3rd. A little bit of snow stretching across the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan up here. Not much to the south of that, pretty dry, warm air. And then as we go into Tuesday, Wednesday, notice we start to see a little bit of a storm system develop on the lee side of the Rockies. That could pose a little bit of some drizzle, maybe foggy conditions, some rain showers across portions of the Illinois Valley, the Ohio Valley on south toward the Gulf Coast. And then as we go to later next week, maybe a more formidable snow system across southern Canada for the most part. The upper Great Lakes region going to be pretty far north, going to be pretty mild next week, and that'll take us all the way through the end of next week on Friday, February 7th as well. Looking at moisture, going to be seeing some decent moisture across the eastern U.S., mainly for the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast. Could be seeing areas in excess of an inch, maybe over 2 inches in some isolated spots of some rainfall out there, and the snow line will be well to the north, so southern Canada, the upper Midwest into the upper Great Lakes region, and northern portions of New England will start to see more of that snowfall. And some of that could be heavy, especially into southern Saskatchewan, southern Manitoba there, into Ontario, Quebec, possibly over 6 inches worth of snow as we go through the 7-day period next week. Let's talk about the stratospheric polar vortex, because this has not been a major player so far this winter. We've been talking about the tropospheric polar vortex over Hudson Bay, but now that we're starting to see some model guidance come in, we're starting to see some hints that the stratosphere will begin to warm up, or what we call a sudden stratospheric warming event by the middle or end of February. And this could have long-lasting implications even past the month of February and into early spring, like March and April as well. But just in the short term, let's look here at the polar vortex. This is in the stratosphere, and notice it's very strong. When you have a strong polar vortex, it keeps a lot of that really Arctic, true Arctic air bottled up to the north. Notice how it's orange down here in the U.S. and southern Canada. We're not really seeing the big blasts of Arctic air through this weekend or even into early next week. Notice as we go through next week, though, by the middle of next week on Wednesday, February 5th, notice you start to see the greens and blues start to stretch out. It's not as compact as it was before. That means it's a polar vortex stretching event, and watch this area over here on the western side of it. Watch this. As we go in towards the following weekend, we get this big orange blob to develop near the Aleutian Islands and the North Pacific. That will actually help the stratosphere warm up and actually cause that cold air, the stretching, to stretch it out even more, almost like a rubber band. When you continue to stretch it, it gets longer and longer. That's definitely a possibility by next weekend. But then watch what happens by the middle of February. Almost a polar vortex split here. Look how red and orange this gets. That will help the stratosphere warm up big time. And this could be a sudden stratospheric warming event similar to what we had in 2018 and also 2019, if you can remember that. And that could send a very big cold air blob down into southern Canada and the United States by the middle to third week of February. So let's look here at that second week in February. This is the 9th through the 15th. Look at the potential of some really cold air coming down as that polar vortex begins to stretch. Not right now looking at a split at this point, but a stretching event that could bring down some Arctic air at least into the northern U.S. How far south it goes, how intense it is unknown, but definitely going to squash that ridge of high pressure in the warmer air to the southeast. And it'll bring in active storm tracks, typical for what you would see for a weak La Nina, where you have the above normal precipitation anomalies here in the Ohio, Tennessee River Valley over to the Mid-Atlantic here, and even the I-95 corridor. And you can see as we get into that second week or so of February, we're going to see that active storm track. The blue is the snow, the pink is the freezing rain and sleet, and the green is the rain. And notice a lot of that snowfall, that snow line, will be ever so shifting further to the south as we go into the middle of February. It's not going to reach the Gulf Coast. I'm pretty confident of that, but it will go pretty far south. Some areas like Kansas, maybe Oklahoma, into Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, perhaps even the Carolinas, at least North Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia. A lot of these areas will see the chance at least for some snow by the middle to third week of February. And you can see the snow line very nicely, those states that I just named out, where you see these blues, but especially the deeper blues, the purples, the pinks there in the northeast New England. This is a great setup for the I-95 corridor for some bigger snowstorms. This is a great setup for Detroit, Cincinnati, Louisville, Indianapolis, Chicago, Milwaukee, Des Moines, Kansas City, St. Louis, maybe even into Tulsa as we go in towards that third week of February. So we're going to continue to track these winter storms and the evolution of the weather pattern as we go into the middle of the month, with the potential for a sudden stratospheric warming event. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and follow along with all my detailed, accurate weather breakdowns on this channel, as we do 2-a-days, late morning, early afternoon, and again likely in the evenings coming up as this weather pattern remains active. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, share this video with friends, family, and on social media. Leave a comment down below if you have any comments, questions, concerns, and I'll get to those after the video. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Friday out there.